Good evening. Today we are having very interesting topic. We are having very interesting educational topics, and the title of educational topic is action-based learning. So we are trying to analyze another learning strategy. So indeed, what is action-based learning? And indeed, you can hear it in educational worldwide really. This strategy appears or expressed in some other definitions like game-based learning or learning by doing or project-based learning, which are very similar to what is called or what is defined as action-based learning. But indeed, action-based learning definition has its own peculiarity, and it has its own distinctive features. So what are those distinctive features indeed? And of course, action-based learning, it's important to notice that action-based learning is something that appears in the formal education, but also it appears in the work environment. So what concerns formal education, it appears as a certain type of games in the game-based learning, but those games are very specific. Those games involves very much action, and through typical actions, a sequence of actions, learners, pupils, or children learn something in the process. So learning by doing is very important characteristic of action-based learning. What is very specific for this strategy, that learners are not much introduced or instructed before the learning. They are provided with a very general framework for learning, for acting, and they discover learning issues or learning object in the process of acting. Other way saying, they are learning by doing. So this is very similar definitions to learning by doing. So action-based learning in the formal education appears in the very specific action-based games that involves much of psychomotoric abilities of learners. So this is very important to distinct that action-based learning in formal education appears within certain types of game in the game-based learning strategy. So we see that action-based learning and game-based learning, those strategies are really very related. And another definition of action-based learning appears in the world of work. And this definition has very specific meaning. Action-based learning in the world of work appears when human beings trying to solve one or another very specific and very real problems within their professional work or within everyday life. And especially action-based learning very typical applied when humans faces the situations of emergency. So for instance, if the nuclear station has exploded and group of scientists or group of experts trying to experiment and do modeling for the different path for salvation of the problems, or other example, and even in our situation, for pandemic situation, also the commissions for extreme events or extreme affairs also doing different models how to tackle the problem of pandemic, how to monitor, how to rule the pandemic situation, and how to do the best and apply the best preventive measures. Other way saying, action-based learning in this case appears by solving of the real world problem that is going on in the actual time and actual space. And what is important for the action-based learning comparing to the other learning strategies, that learners or team of experts, either in formal education, either in the real world professional situation, they don't have a lot of time for reaction. They must act very quickly, very promptly, and do different intervention in order to solve particular problems or situation. That's why in the action-based learning they apply much of strategical and quick learning skills. Also, they apply much of observation of problem or observation of the object. Also, they do a lot of experimentations and applying certain measures to tackle the problem or task. So we see that action-based learning, either in the formal environment, formal learning environment, either in the real world environment, has certain characteristic, that this learning strategy is applied for learning very concrete tasks or solving very concrete problems in a very fast manner. That's why the learners need a very good concentration, ability and motivation to act quickly and do different experiments and be able to tackle problem or learning object very quickly. And that's why action-based learning really in this case differs from the problem-based learning or even project-based learning, where learners have a lot of time to figure out the problem. In the action-based learning, they must act really very quickly and tackle the learning object or tackle problem-solving process.